a performance review in a while, and I would like to ask for that. And that, gets you in a position where you can have a formal conversation with your employer about, are you happy with my productivity? If yes, then I'd like to ask for a raise. And, you know, in the economy that we are experiencing right now, you know, you may be laughed at. They may say, it's just not in the budget. They may, find, all different types of lip service to get you to drop it. Okay. And that's fine. And you don't have to, get really mad or cause a scene or anything, but you just accept that for what it is, continue working, continue doing what you need to do to have a good history at your current employer, and just start looking at other options. I mean, I think it makes sense to put your feelers out there, send your resume to different companies, and start looking for positions elsewhere. Like you said, a lot of the times when you can't get the raise that you want in an organization that you already are employed by, the next step is to look for a position in a different company where you can say, listen, I'm coming in with all this experience. I've really done a lot of good work, and I'm ready to come bring my experience to help your business. And this is what I need to earn. And at that point, you'll either get the job or you won't. But keep working at that. I think it's important, and it's a really, really integral part of getting ahead on your finances and continuing to build your financial home, because accumulating wealth is very, very, very important in today's day and age when Social Security is already in a deficit. We cannot rely on Social Security as millennials to fall back on in retirement. And you have to get to a point where you're not just keeping up and making your debt payments and paying expenses. You do have to get to a point where you're accumulating wealth and setting yourself up for some retirement income at some point. So if you take that
I
gut check,
think
you have the uncomfortable conversation, and realize you need to make more money, that is valid. And there are ways to start going in that direction, I guess. That's kind of my spiel and take on it. Um, Putting it into
no, I
practice
think that
might
that's
not be so
smart.
easy.
Yeah, practice is the tricky thing, and like that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is it's easy to say, oh, we'll just earn more money. That's not it. It's like recognizing what the denominator of it is. Like, okay, if you had the opportunity to earn more money, everybody would say yes, because who doesn't want more money?
Right.
But I view it kind of like what you said, like figure out what you need first off. Just need. Need versus want is very different from each other.
Yep.
But there's so many resources that are available. Exactly what like where I started was a casual conversation of, hey, fellow coworker of mine, how much y'all make? Let's just put it out on the table. We're all gonna know. And I found out I earned more than some, and I found that I earned less than others, and I found that I earned just as much as people that I felt I should earn a lot more of. And I knew in that organization they would do annual reviews once a year, and you would get a merit raise, which varied between 2 or 4% of your salary. So that meant at the most you could ever increase your salary was 4%. If it was more than that, you usually had to do something wildly substantial. Like I think I saw one person get a 6% raise because she was basically running a department by herself. It was one of those roles where she was already underpaid. She should have been in a management role, but she wasn't. She was running the show while not getting the pay, while doing all the responsibility. And they threw a little bit of money at her and said, here you go, have a great day. And I feel like companies, they always try to do what they can to keep their labor costs low because it's the single most expensive item of operating a company is paying people and the compensation and the packages and the benefits and all that stuff. But in my case, I'm not saying I need to have a certain kind of life. I wanted a 5 bedroom house with a 3 car garage and a saltwater swimming pool. How much do I need to earn to get that? It was more of how do I keep the mortgage payment caught up on this 1,200 square foot house that I own? Like, I just want to be even. And for me, I recognized because like the job I was at, they would only give you raises once a year and they were going to be small. It'd take you a couple of years to break an additional dollar per hour. I gamed the system and milked it for what I had that one time. And I also knew I was out of ways to game. That's all I was ever going to get was like what I got. But I recognize in that situation, okay, this is all I'm going to have. So I will need to go somewhere else. I will need to be risky. I liked my job. I liked my coworkers. I wrote on my personal Facebook not that long ago, reminiscing on leaving that job and how it was one of the scariest things I did. And for 3 years afterwards, I regretted leaving the job. Like financially, no, I did not regret. I never looked back. I was like, this was the most brilliant idea of my 20s. But emotionally, I couldn't like wrap my mind around the fact that I did it and I walked away from somewhere I liked so much. But like full transparency, because we're all friends here. I went when I first got into finance, I earned $10.50 an hour. Present day, I have a six-figure salary. And it's not because I figured it out. Honestly, the latter part of it was sheer freaking luck and not much more. But up to that point, I went from like $11 an hour. I stayed $11 an hour for 2 years, first off. Um, then I got to 12, then I got to 13, then I got to 19. When I left there, I was at 21. I took a pay dip for the next job I had because I was so just PO'd at the one that I was at. Like I was over it. And I was at a point where I'd saved up enough to allow that. But then the job I have now worked out to where I made more and I kind of came way ahead. But that's the tricky thing. And you mentioned amount of jobs. I counted in the last 10 years of my life, which I'm 30. So I have many years ahead of me. I've had 5 jobs. My husband has had one in the exact same frame of time where I got a 40,000 hour or 40,000 a year paying job, the $19 one. He's just breaking that number now. And that's one of those reminders to me of like sometimes you have to make those calls. Like there's nothing wrong with wanting more and demanding more, going to your employer saying, hey, you count on me. Why can't we put that on my paycheck? Or going to competitors and saying, hey, I love my job. I really don't want to leave, but this is what I need to do. Websites like glassdoor.com and I think even like Indeed and stuff and salary.com have it on there. They'll let you know what similar industries as you pay. They'll let you know what competitors pay for the same roles. Like they give you a pretty good range so you know what you're walking into. But you have to recognize that you have to ask for it. Like they're not just going to give it to you. They never will give it to you. And you need to, I don't know, just evaluate your worth along the way. And that's the toughest part. But it's also just as like a side comment, it's also freaking sad that we live in this little world where you have to figure out how to be a better job hunter to just sustain your family. Like, why is this a thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. You said something about being aware of your own worth. And I think we have a huge issue, especially among millennials, where we have a lot of people that don't necessarily recognize their own self worth. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of the times has to do with the environment that they are working in, where they feel like, oh, I'm just so thankful to be in this position and I'm very loyal. And I think that a lot of the times employers can take advantage of employees because of that feeling of, I'm just so thankful to have a job and, be somewhere where I can come every day and earn an income. And that's great. But it's one of those things where I think that a lot of people are selling themselves short. And, it does take that scary step of, just putting yourself out there to see what other opportunities there are. And, you know, that it may be right for someone to do that right now, it may not be, but it's just something to think about. I'll share a little bit about my own experience with this type of thing. When I graduated high school, obviously I was a non-traditional student when I went to college, but when I graduated high school, I did not necessarily know what I wanted to do. I had no real conviction about what career I wanted to have. And I'd been working in restaurants since I was, old enough to work. And I really enjoyed the restaurant industry. I started in the back of the house. I was always a kitchen employee. And then when I was old enough to become a waiter, I started doing that. And I lived on my own. I paid my own bills. Uh, I did the whole right out of high school where I got a house I was renting and had a lot of friends, had a lot of fun. Don't regret any of it. But I got to a point, working in restaurants where I was making, a decent amount bartending and, waiting tables. And at one point, I was probably making, before going to college, a little over $40,000 a year just doing that. And that's great. But the lifestyle that I had with that was one that did not allow me to save money. It was kind of a going out every night type of lifestyle. It was you get off work at midnight or later, and then you go down to the dive bar down the street, and you close it down with all your coworkers, and you know then you wake up kind of hungover and go back to work the next day for a double, and you work all day, and you open the restaurant, and then you close the restaurant, and then you go back and do it all over again, and it's just kind of a fast lifestyle that never really slows down. And while I had the money to pay the bills and not go into debt, I was not making any progress. And that really started to weigh on me in 2013 ish. And then it was August of 2014 when I finally was like moving to Cookeville, Tennessee to go to school. And that was my first journey into the idea that, hey, I really cannot continue to spread myself so thin like this and continue to make the same amount of money that I am. I was looking at it as, yes, I'm making about the same amount of money I would if I was like a bank teller or something like that, but you know, I'm just working too hard for it. So this is just not something that I can do for the rest of my life. So I went to school in August of 2014, and I graduated 4 years later, 2018. The whole time, I worked in the restaurant industry. I bartended at a place. It was a little pub in Cookeville. Had a really great time doing that. I, worked my way up to being a shift leader while I was in school, and I was, leading shifts and kind of running the place during the days. And then my junior year of college, I took a position as the opening general manager of a smokehouse and oyster bar in town, and that took up so much of my time. And I felt like the amount of effort and work I was putting in, I wasn't really getting paid for at first. And I talked to the owner, got my guaranteed earnings in the way of a salary up to like $35,000, and that was like, okay, I mean, that's not great, but at least it's something, and I'm still in school, and I can live with that, right? Like that'll be fine. I got to the point where I was almost set on the fact that I was going to continue doing that, managing that place after graduating, until I had one really, really long night where I felt like everything was going wrong. And I was really stressed and I was behind on some school projects. And I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I'm willing to quit this job and just scrape by with the money I have until I graduate, focus on interviewing and focusing on positioning myself well for after graduation and making sure I can have a good start of a career. And so that's what I did. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? The amount of work I'm putting in for this $35,000 is not worth it at all. It is just backbreaking, and it's just not worth it. So I quit. It wasn't a 2 weeks notice, anything. I was just like, you know what? This is not for me. I've got you past the grand opening. You got good people here. All the systems are in place. You're good. I'm stepping away. And that's what I did. Um,
Good for you.
yeah. Graduated. I budgeted myself and lived on $800 a month for the rest of my college career. And I made it. I did live on $800 a month. I paid rent. I paid all my bills. I bought food. I made sure I had my school books. I did everything I needed to do on $800 a month. And that was seriously, seriously scraping by. I mean, I've been there. And when I tell my clients that, like, I really mean it. I have been there and just surviving. Graduated the whole time I'd been interviewing. I interview with all the companies in Knoxville, Vanderbilt Mortgage, 21st Mortgage, Clayton Homes, all the big salary positions that, are the big, great first time jobs out of college type places in Knoxville. and
Mhm.
interviewed with a bunch of different